From the Fantasy Formula One podcast, we are going to discuss pit stop strategies. And I want to preface this by saying I am not a Formula One pit stop strategist. I, like you, watch a lot of the races, take notes. I love stats. I love the strategy behind it, but I'm not an actual Formula One strategist. So I promise I'm just summarizing and parroting everything that I've learned from watching the exact same shows that you have watched. But I am former military pilot, so there's some of that sprinkled in there too. But commentators like and strategists like Ruth Buscombe-Davey and Will Buxton, Laura Winter, and Bretto and Hinchcliffe and Sam Collins and all the F1 TV presenters. I learned an awful lot from their commentary, so I strongly encourage you to listen to them as well. But we'll go ahead. That's the caveat. We'll go ahead and get into it. So pit stops are one of the most critical stages of an F1 race, and one of the most important things an F1 team can get right, because it's a full team effort. Any little bit that goes wrong will have huge ramifications, and it's evolved quite a bit from the days where people would, as the joke goes, they'd come and grab a sandwich, step out of the car, stretch, get new tires. It was very much not something to be hurried. And now in Formula One, even now if watching NASCAR and here in the United States, the cars come in, they stop in the pits, they jack up one side, they do the tires, they run around to the other side, put in fuel, and it's a little bit more of a thing. Where in Formula One, they can get pit stops down to being stopped total for under 2 seconds. The way the strategies break down is usually in a 1-stop, 2-stop, or maybe 3-stop strategy. The official rules, at least as of now, so the official rule is not that you have to pit. The official rule is that you have to race 2 different compounds of tires at some point on the race, during the race, I should say. And to do that, you have to pit. So there's not a drive to pit outside of tires. There's no fuel. This isn't NASCAR. They don't put more gas in your car. You come into the pits just to fix any damage or to change the tires. So the one-stop strategy is the most common. And usually with the one-stop strategy, you start on a durable tire compound, like a medium or a hard, and then you pit once you're in the middle of the race to swap to another compound, and then you manage the tire degradation of that compound for the rest of the race. And you can also, some teams, if they feel they need an edge or something like that, they'll swap that. They'll have the less durable compound. You see, Fernando Alonso did this a lot last year. He would start with the less durable compound to try and get it into the zone and try and get that quick advance early in the race, hoping there to be like a safety car or some other sort of intervention where he can keep his position, and then pit to a harder compound, and then pit to a harder compound, and then no casino race there. But the pros of the one-stop strategy are that it minimizes time lost in the pits, because one stop is quicker than 2, of course, and it's preferred if tire wear is low or the track position is critical. Now, when I say that, track position is always critical. But what happens is, let's say and I'm going to use nice round numbers, the strategists know that from the time, like on a lap, they will lose 20 seconds of lap time, say, by pitting. Well, then they will not pit if they're only 10 seconds in front of whoever's behind them, because they know that person would then be ahead. Or if I'm driving and I'm only 5 seconds behind whoever's in front of me. Again, I'm just giving examples here. Like, any true strategist out there probably be like, dude, you're a little bit wrong. But as an example, if I know that if me and the car ahead of me both still need to pit, I could duck into the pits in front of him, do what's called an undercut, get the fresher tires, come back out, and as long as I'm back out still within 20 seconds of him, if I can catch up and advance, so I'm within 20 seconds of the car ahead of me that still has to pit, that's an undercut, and I don't need to pit anymore. Then they'll have to pit to change their tires. I can pass them, and then they can't pass me again because I've already used my pit. So that's what I mean by track position being critical. And one pit is the best for high fuel efficiency tracks where stopping more doesn't offer like a major advantage. There are some cons, and the big con is that tire management is critical. The drivers need to extend their first stint while keeping good pace, and they're vulnerable to, like I said, undercuts or overcut strategies from the competitors. And again, undercut and overcut is really cool. It's really fun to think about, and I can go into a little bit more detail of that later. So a two-stop strategy is more aggressive, and so it starts. You usually start on a softer or a faster tire, like softs or mediums, for that track, and then you pit for fresh tires twice. Once usually around lap 15 to 20, and another around lap 40 or 50 or 30 or 40, I should say, in like a 50-lap race. And you use a mix of either soft, medium, soft, or soft, medium, medium compounds. And you can really only use, unless it's wet, you can only use 2 different compounds. But the reason why you do that is as soon as there's a lot of people pitting, as soon as there's multiple collisions, as soon as there's safety cars, as soon as there's all of this going on, then if I do a one-stop strategy, go my softs, and then go into hards to try and last the whole race, that works so long as there's not a safety car, so long as the field doesn't bunch up, so long as I can stay out there, and every time somebody else pits behind me, I gain 20 seconds on them, and then they can't catch up with me to regain that 20 seconds. Then that one-stop strategy works best. As soon as everybody's doing two-stop strategies, there's a lot of safety cars, there's a red flag, there's things like that. Then everybody else, if the whole field's bunched up, I have a bunch of old tires or old old hard tires on that don't go as fast but last longer, and all the field around me has a bunch of brand new mediums. Well, then I'm in deep trouble because everyone's just going to pass me, and that's it. That was my elaboration, but now I'll go into the official list that I wrote down of why. So the pros of a two-stop strategy are it's more aggressive. You get fresher tires to allow for faster lap times. It's easier to push without excessive tire management because you're just go, 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 go. And as soon as your tires burn out, well, you're going to go ahead and go to the pits and get new ones. And this is effective on high degradation tracks. But I know, for example, like Bahrain, again, without the stats in front of me, Bahrain is a very high degradation track. So depending on what compounds they use, and what they come up with in testing and things like that, the teams might decide, and what they come up with in free practice, they might decide, hey, our tires are degrading too much. We need to go to a two-stop strategy. The cons are that you lose more time in the pits compared to a one-stop. You lose twice the time, assuming something doesn't go wrong. And it requires overtaking ability to regain that lost track position. So as soon as my car is a 2023, 2022 Lewis Hamilton Mercedes that can literally pass, or a 2024, 2023 Max Red Bull, like I can just pass everybody on the field. Well, then great. I'm less afraid of a two-stop strategy because I can do it, get fresher tires, and go crush it. But it is less effective if the traffic is a problem. So on tracks like Monaco, where passing is very, very, very difficult, you don't really want a two-stop strategy. You want to hurry up and get your one-stop in so you don't have to pit because you're never getting your position back. And I think it was a little 2024 last year, or it was 2023, where there was a massive crash in Monaco. And so on lap like 2, 3, 4, whatever, it was before lap 10, everybody got a new tire compound. So no one needed a pit. And everybody, like, there was very minimal passing. A bunch of, like, things that was a year like that Haas crashed, and it was a very interesting race, but it was just very interesting. It was, go back and watch it, but that the pit stop strategy really mattered. And then you have 3-stop strategies, which are very rare and very aggressive. These are all about, assuming you're going into this planned, these are all about speeds. These are using soft tires with multiple stops to maximize the pace, and you usually start on softs, then you pit early for another set, and then you finish with fresh mediums or softs. The pros are that it maximizes just straight out race pace. It can work if degradation is extremely high, or if the rivals are struggling, or if there's a lot of crashes, a lot of debris, some red flags. Then you'll be putting on different compounds. Or you can also be used, like I said, if safety car is out, and that reduces the time loss in the pits. The cons are that it's a huge time loss in the pits compared to a 1 or a 2 stop. So if every pit stop on a race costs 20 seconds, well, if I do a 1-stop strategy, I'm only going to lose 20 seconds. If you do a 3-stop strategy, you're going to lose a minute, which means that throughout the course of the race, you need to recover 20 seconds of lap pace. You need to be basically remaking 1/3 of a second a lap, or 3/10 of a second a lap for the entire race. Very difficult to do in that respect. And it's really only valuable, the 3-stop strategy is only valuable in extreme conditions with very high degradation or with changing weather. And it's really used in modern F1. It can be used in like Singapore and Hungary sometimes, where degradation is a lot. I use, how about this? A lot of times where you'll see 3-stop strategies go into it is when it's raining, when you have to decide between your soft, medium, hard compounds, or your intermediate compounds, or your wet tires. And there's a whole nother talk about the tires themselves. I won't do it here. But moving on to, there is another strategy where it is like a no-stop strategy, and it's technically illegal. And just because you have to race with more than one compound of tire by the rules, you have to race. I'm sorry, not with more than one compound. You have to race with 2 compounds of tires. You can't race with 3. You can't race with 1. You have to only use 2 compounds of tires. But the caveat to that is that F1 requires drivers to use those 2 compounds during dry races only. It's possible, if it's a full wet race or a full inter race, to stay on all wets or intermediate tires from the beginning without pitting. And when you see this is if the rain's coming down, or the rain is on the track, or whatever, the stewards will decide, hey, everyone has to start on wets, or everyone has to start on intermediates. And the reason why they do that is to prevent, hey, everyone, it's really wet. We should probably all start on intermediates. And then I, in the back of the pack, want to gamble, put on my softs, and just hopefully pass everybody if the track's not as bad as it needs to be. So they made the rule that the stewards can dictate, hey, you will go wet, you will go intermediate for the start of the race only. If the rain's really coming down, I think they can probably they can stop the race and force everyone to come in and everyone to put on wets or intermediates, just to try and make it fair. But if the stewards aren't making that decision, then you will be in a situation where we're all racing around, the track's getting wet. Do we come in or do we not? But I'm getting a little bit of digressing about this no-stop strategy. This happened within the last couple of years. The stewards decided, hey, everyone's racing on wets or everyone's racing on inners, and then they started the race. And that very first lap, the whole field came in to change the softs, or to change to the dry compound tires, except one person. He stayed out, and if I'm remembering correctly, the tires overheated and burned up. They lost all sorts of lap time, and it destroyed their race. So the thing to remember, actually, I'm not going to go into that. I keep wanting to go into tire compounds, but that's another talk. So I will go ahead and make good on my promise to talk about the undercut overcut strategy. So an undercut is how you pit earlier than the car ahead of you to gain time with the fresher tires. The fresh tires can be up to 1 to 2 seconds faster per lap. So by the time the rivals pit, you've passed them. This is best used when track position is very close and overall taking is difficult. So tracks like Monaco and Hungary and stuff like that. An overcut strategy is when you stay out longer, so all the rivals pit, you get that extra time with a free and empty track, and then they come back out and they can't catch you. You have enough of a buffer there then that once they come out and your strategist is like, hey, Paul's 45 seconds behind you. You're like, okay, sweet, free pit stop. You go in there, you get your tires, you come back out. Now we're 20 seconds apart, but I can't catch you. That's undercut, overcut. And the overcut, like I said, does work when rivals are struggling to warm up their tires or if they get stuck in traffic. And it's best used when tire wear is manageable and the track position is critical, but also I hate to say that, like track position's always important, but when who's in front of you and what the weathers are, when it all comes down to where you are on the track relation to other people, not just with who's winning and who's losing. So safety car pit stops. When a safety car, or as we would call it in the United States, a pace car, comes out, you can pit under the safety car or virtual safety car to save time. And the reason why it saves you time is the rest of the field isn't traveling at top speed. So since the rest of the field's going slower, if I pit under safety car, I'll probably save about 10 seconds. So instead of it being a 20-second pit stop like we've been using, I'll only lose 10 seconds on the pit stop. And this is best to use like when the safety car comes out just before I was planning to stop anyway. Or if there's a crash or a collision, or if suddenly everyone else is going into the pits and you think you're about to get undercut or overcut, well, then you'll go ahead and go with the crowd, or you'll try and do an undercut or overcut yourself. A double stack pit stop. This is pretty interesting. So we've seen some teams do it well. I think Ferrari did it well a couple years ago, and basically both teammates pit at the same time with minimal delay for the second car. So if you and I are teammates and we're driving, and the strategist will literally know how long it takes from me to enter with our delta, our difference, how long I will need to wait before I can get into the pit stop, into the pit box after you take your pits. And so they might slow me down, or they might just stack me up behind you, and like a waiting line for a car wash, just have me going right after. The risk of the second car, the risk is the second car might lose too much time waiting in the pit box, or you might have to slow me down or something like that. It's best to use under a safety car when both cars need fresh tires at the same time. And again, I've seen it work well, and I've seen where it should have happened, but the risk is that you send the other car around. And how about this? I love pit stop strategy, so let me try to explain this a little bit better. It happened last year or the year before when I forget. I think it was McLaren, when it was raining, it was drying, everybody was on inters, and they wanted to have the lead car, Lando Norris, I think it was. They wanted the lead car to go in and pit and change to dries. Or maybe, it was reverse that. Oscar Piastri was the lead car, and they wanted Lando Norris to try and undercut him. They wanted to gamble with Lando Norris coming out of the track and having it be too wet and him losing a bunch of time since he was the second car, and then let Oscar Piastri go around one more time, just get one more lap on the intermediates, since they thought the intermediates were still good. Well, Lando Norris, again, maybe I'm mixing up my teams. I apologize if I am. Lando Norris went in, changed the softs. They sent Oscar Piastri around. But the track dried too much. Oscar Piastri burned up his tires, and Lando Norris almost caught up with him. By the time Oscar Piastri slipped and slid and melted his tires all the way around the track, Piastri went into the pits. Lando Norris passed him, and Oscar Piastri trashed his race because he stayed out too long. When if they had double stacked him, if they had brought in Oscar Piastri, then brought in Lando Norris behind him, they'd have double stacked him up, all gotten fresh dry compound tires, and they would have been in a really strong position for the race. Well, that is our discussion on pit stop strategy. Be sure to check out our other content and get caught up on all things fantasy Formula One before teams lock. Cheers.